You've tuned in to chipsgrooveradio with Mike and Jesse.
Slay the Spire run a day, maybe sometimes even just like half a run. So I'd just been doing nothing but the defect, just trying to get all the way up to Ascension 20. And I got there, and I've been working for the last probably week and a half on trying to clear it. And it's very difficult.
Rough.
It's very difficult.
Sounds rough.
Yeah.
Well, my heart goes out to you because I have been jumping headfirst into Alien's Dark Descent.
Ooh.
It is a tactical game where you play a commander. It's like an overhead. You're guiding 4 Marines through various scenarios, obviously set in the Aliens universe. It's pretty fun, but I chose because, as everyone might know on this show, I'm a whore for achievements. So I try to limit the number of playthroughs I have to do. So I chose to play it through on Nightmare the first time. So that's a slow process. Not to mention it was given life to Tindalos Interactives. I don't know why they gave this IP to someone I've never heard of, but I mean, the game definitely has its problems in terms of polish, and at times it's very juvenile, and just they could do way better, especially in the year 2024 when it came out. So, or 2023, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it's fun overall. It's just, it has its problems. And then, yeah, my dumbass chose to play it on the hardest mode first.
Yeah, that seems ill-advised, Mike.
Well, it's not the first time I've done it, and I've had some success with it, but I am making my way through it. I think I'm on mission like 5, and it's just taking, each mission is a work in progress, and oh boy, I probably won't beat it for a while, but oh well, I'll chip away a little bit at a time. How was your holiday, sir?
Oh, it was great. We were just talking about Slay the Spire. I pre-ordered the collector's edition of the Slay the Spire board game. It's like a co-op board game. You can do it with 4 people.
Yeah, I saw that at Gen Con.
And it came in 3 weeks before Christmas, and I had forgotten that I ordered it. And I was like, oh, hey, this was totally intended a Christmas gift for the family. Yeah.
Nice.
So got that.
Have you played it?
No. I actually just got in all the card sleeves to,
Oh, okay.
I'm one of those. Got to sleeve everything.
I don't know judgment. I used to play Magic quite frequently, and I would sleeve just about everything. Oh, yeah. It's especially when you're a fan of the product, you want to keep it pristine. Especially with some of that artwork, it's just I want this to look good. And of course, the outset of this might be valuable someday. So,
coming to find out, they are a lot of them. So
they are.
Oh yes,
they are. Magic the Gathering is still going strong, and I sold my collection actually pretty close to 8 years ago now. It was decent little payday. I wasn't expecting it, but yeah, not bad. Well, today, ladies and gentlemen, we are here to talk about one of PlayStation's finest soundtracks, not to bury the lead here. Oh, yeah. Final Fantasy Tactics. Yeah, I'm sure you've heard of it, and with good reason. This is a premier soundtrack on the PlayStation 1. I love this soundtrack. I'm just going to lead with that. And I know Jesse probably does too, as he picked this one. So why don't you tell me a little bit about why you chose this one?
Yeah, it's no secret that I'm a big Final Fantasy fan. Well, that we both are. We've talked about a bunch of different games in the series.
The tattoo you just showed off.
The tattoo that I just showed off. Yeah, I mean, my daughter's name is Tara. Come on now. Big fans. Yeah, there you go.
I've got Final Fantasy 6.
Nice. So, kind of surprisingly, I actually didn't really play the Final Fantasy games that came out on PS1. when they came out, because I never got a PlayStation. We had like, one friend in the friend group that had one, and we all went to his house and did like sleepovers in middle school and played Final Fantasy VII, Resident Evil, like all the classics from PlayStation. But Final Fantasy Tactics was not a game that he ever picked up. So, one thing led to another. Just after high school, this is probably like, I don't know, 2001 maybe. I was working part-time at like a, board game store near college. And one of the guys that I ended up kind of befriending told me about Final Fantasy Tactics and how he couldn't believe I'd never played it. And it seemed like it was right up my alley. And he would just talk about it nonstop. So eventually I ended up going out and finding like I think it was a PS2, like a used PS2, and picked up a couple of games that I had just never played on PlayStation. Most of the time for the Final Fantasy games, I was a PC kid. So I waited until the PC ports. I still have,
I gotcha.
I still have somewhere my little cardstock sleeves with my 4 Final Fantasy VII discs, and I think Final Fantasy VIII had like 5 or 6 discs. Well, they never got a PC port for Tactics, so I just never played it. Well, I really like XCOM.
You missed out, son.
Yeah, I really like XCOM and like turn-based strategy games, like a lot. Like I played the XCOM games when they came out on like MS-DOS. This is like before the Windows ports were even there. You had to run them in DOS shell.
Oh yeah.
So how a turn-based strategy XCOM style game in the Final Fantasy series snuck past me, I got no idea. But now this game is probably, I think it might be tied for number 1 most replayed Final Fantasy game ever for me. It's right neck and neck with 9. Yeah. This is also the first Final Fantasy game that I played that did not have Nobuo Uematsu as the composer. So
yeah, it's the first one I knew of.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, anyone who knows the game, it's very different, very different. And that is the key with this game is you don't know if you are just a strict Final Fantasy game player, you probably didn't know what to expect with this one. And for a lot of people, it was a little jarring. The transition from what we had known as a Final Fantasy game, as a typical, you're in a party, you're roaming around, exploring, and getting into random encounters, that's kind of thrown out the window in favor of a game board, essentially, where you're not really exploring. You do get in some random encounters, but they're plot points on a map, and the battlefield, you cannot hold the button down and succeed. You have to pay attention to every unit, every interaction, every action and movement that you need to make. It is a very intense strategy game. And I first heard of it from my 2 friends, Ethan and Mike. They had PlayStations before I did. And I had gotten a glimpse of it, and I was like, this looks fantastic. I don't know what it was about it. I think it was the idea of the in-depth kind of management of each unit on the board that really intrigued me. And it was Final Fantasy, so I had to have it. And I got it for that Christmas, and I was playing it nonstop. So as for the soundtrack, no, it was not Nobuo Uematsu, and that was a big turn for the series. This was composed by Hitoshi Sakimoto and Masaharu Iwata. They are 2 friends from school who kind of have grown up helping each other out on soundtrack projects. And I think it's a really cool story because they still, from what I know, they're still friends and they still work together. Iwata, I believe, has taken a step back, but I mean, they have been working on projects together as long as they've had a career. So this is one of their babies, and we're about to dive deep into this bad boy.
Yeah, I think that before they did Final Fantasy Tactics, they did Ogre Battle, which Ogre Battle is basically like proto Final Fantasy Tactics. It's the same basic style of game with a couple of other, intricacies to it. But going back, when I read that, I was like, oh, geez, I got to listen to the soundtrack for that a little bit. And sure enough, I mean, there's a lot of stylistic similarities there. Very, very cool. One thing that's kind of cool is because this wasn't like a numbered Final Fantasy game, so to speak, they actually were told that they didn't need to try and stick with the same sort of musical themes that were common in the rest of the Final Fantasy series. Nobuo Uematsu even said that do your own thing. Like, this is a Final Fantasy game, but don't feel like you have to stick to my style.
Yeah. And they didn't. And I would say, I don't think there's one track in here that resembles a typical traditional Final Fantasy track. You know, the crystal theme's not even in here.
Nope.
So they made it completely their own. And it is, for what it's worth, I don't know that this bears mentioning, but I'm going to mention it anyway. This was the birth of Ivalice.
Yeah.
And Ivalice is the world in which this takes place. And for some reason, they have kept it almost adjacent to Final Fantasy, where there are some games that take place in Ivalice, and whether or not they're really related, you know, it's up for interpretation. They brought Ivalice back for Final Fantasy 12.
Yeah.
And another PlayStation 1 that everyone forgets is Vagrant Story.
Oh, yeah. I've never played that.
It's weird. It's not bad, but I don't remember. I didn't get too far into it. I was very young when I played it. But there's that game. There's Final Fantasy Tactics, Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. And then Final Fantasy 12, for some reason, they decided to throw into the Ivalice world. So they are all in the same universe. I don't know why they've chosen to do that, but it's kind of cool that they've got this one world that they keep coming back to, whereas typical Final Fantasy numbered titles are all different worlds. So they've kind of come back to the well a few times with this one. So a little interesting, I thought.
Yeah, it's cool. Ivalice is kind of it's become sort of a mainstay in a lot of episodes. I guess episodes. That's not quite right. In a lot of numbered games in the series, even like you said, like Final Fantasy 12 is very overtly set in Ivalice. They go back to it in Final Fantasy 14, which I know is an MMO, but I mean, still, like they place it in the same world.
Right. They mention it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's basically they've kind of done that like twice, essentially. Like tried to create a world that ties together multiple different games. They did it with the Ivalice like saga of games, Alliance. And they also did it with one of the newer ones. Like I think 13, 2, 3, Typo, and 15 were all supposed to be in the same universe or something like that. I can't. Maybe it was 15 and Typo. I can't remember, but I should have actually looked that up before I spouted it off. But
no, it's all right. It's all right. We here at Chip Grooves Radio, we deal in authentic and truthful and well thought out, investigated commentary.
Yeah, we research everything we say.
We make zero mistakes on this show. I have often wondered, and I didn't dive too deep into this, but you had mentioned that this is very similar to Ogre Battle and Tactics Ogre, which that is very true. Tactics Ogre and Ogre Battle came before this. They brought on Yasumi Matsuno, who created Ogre Battle, and he wrote and directed this game. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Ogre Battle is an Enix game?
I believe it was,
correct? Yeah. Okay. I'm wondering what their thought process behind that was like they saw that formula and were like, we need to get these guys and we want to make our own Final Fantasy game with like it just seemed interesting that they would poach. I don't know that that's what happened, but they poached almost the entire team to come make a Final Fantasy game for Squaresoft, who was a rival of Enix at the time. I just thought it was interesting. I don't think there was any ill will. I don't know that, but I thought it was interesting that they brought several of the team members over, including the director, the writer, the composers, and some of the programmers to make Final Fantasy Tactics. Now, is Final Fantasy Tactics just Ogre Battle with the Final Fantasy moniker slapped onto it? Sure, we could say that.
In some sense, I suppose, yeah. They play drastically differently, but yeah, I get it.
They do. One thing that always struck me about Final Fantasy Tactics, and I don't know if it's because when Final Fantasy 6 came out, I was 9, 7 shortly thereafter, a couple of years, and then Tactics came out. I think I was going through something, but the seriousness of aspects of each of these games really spoke to me at that age. I don't know why. And what really struck me about this game is just how mature the subject matter is. It's not your typical Final Fantasy, as it really deals with class warfare, betrayal, rewriting history, religious corruption, and above all else, several murders that you see on screen. It's like, okay, this is a little more intense. I don't know. Did that strike you at all? I don't know if I'm maybe misremembering how brutal this game was, but
oh, yeah.
This is definitely a more mature Final Fantasy.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the right from jump, and part of it, especially playing it when it came out, part of it is because the translation wasn't really very good in the original release of the game.
Right.
So some of the dialogue was a little bit hard to follow. The game has almost like a medieval or early Renaissance European sort of vibe to it, much more than any other games in the series. It deals a lot with politics and with war between nations, and you're a bastard son cast out of a royal family who has to try and find some way to save the world.
His place in the world.
Yeah. I know. Like your nemesis, as the story progresses, is like your dearest childhood friend who was like a lowborn kid. Like this is not a Final Fantasy story. This is, something out of like a Shakespearean play. It's pretty intense.
This is tragedy.
Oh my God, it's so tragic. Yeah.
It's not your typical, you could sometimes equate Final Fantasies to the Disney adventures, but this is a very bloody and dark history with, like you said, you're pitted against your best friend, and it's one of the most heart-wrenching moments in this game. And I'm going to touch on it with one of the songs, but man, the twists and turns this game takes, and you find yourself in, for those who don't know, the main character is Ramza Beolve. He's a young noble, but he is cast out by his brothers. They don't think he's deserving of the name Beolve. They don't want him around. And he's just kind of thrust into this role of being a hero in trying to save the planet as things unravel around him. He doesn't have all the answers. He's trying to find the good in the world and make the right choices. And in doing so, eventually he loses his best friend, and it becomes this struggle between like almost heaven and hell, essentially, but also with all these political parties vying for power. And it's an incredible game, incredible story. It can get confusing at times, but it is not meant for the casual gamer.
No.
And I realized that pretty quick when I got the game. You have to stick with it, but it's one of those things where, if you let it soak in and you spend the time with it, you will be rewarded, and it feels that much better. One thing that I really took note of, and it's hard not to, is the battles are not short. Even if you're just grinding for experience, you're setting aside 10-minute battles for one battle, and it's like that's on the low side. You can spend a half hour on a battle if you really need to. It's a very different experience.
Yeah, this is not a game for the faint of heart. They're actually, and I think we're going to get to it with one of the songs that we talk about later on. There is actually a point in the original game where it doesn't warn you that this is going to happen, but you pass a point of no return with saves. And if
I've got that listed right here.
Oh yeah, we're going to talk about that. But long story short, like if you progress into this dungeon, there's no way to turn back around. So if you're not prepared for the fight at the end, you just lose, and you're have to start your game over again if you didn't make other saves to back yourself up.
Yeah. And the shitty part about that is it's like 30 hours into the game.
Oh, yeah. It's not early.
Oh, I have that. It was my next sentence here on my notes. It could be considered a flaw, but I don't know that it is, because during that time, it wasn't all about hand-holding. Games have taken a turn in that direction. You can play an in-depth, action-packed game that is traditionally pretty hard, but you can choose to play it for the story now, where they dumb everything down. They take the impact of combat away, or they make failing really hard to do. This was a time when good luck.
Yeah.
And that's essentially the story. And yeah, so what Jesse is referencing is a series of battles in Riovane's castle.
Yeah.
And if you basically there are points in this game where you will get sucked into what you think is a battle, but it's actually a series of battles.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like one with 3 or 4 battles, I think. You can save in between each battle, but you can't exit to the map and kind of regroup. So if you are underleveled and you get to the final boss in this area, which is easy to do,
Mm-hmm.
you will be rewarded with having to start the game over because you're just not ready.
Yep.
Oh, I've done it.
Oh, yeah. I did it the first time.
Not above this.
I did it the first time I played. Didn't know.
This game is as unforgiving as its chess ancestry.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of missable stuff, too. Like, there's a bunch of stuff in the game where if you just progress beyond a point and you didn't do a conversation in one town on one edge of the map to start a kind of side series of quests, you could just miss a character entirely. You just can't get.
Mm-hmm.
One of the strongest swords in the game, you have to go into the secret final dungeon and have a specific ability equipped on one of your characters to catch a sword that's thrown at you by an enemy ninja. And if you don't have that ability equipped, you just take a shitload of damage and the sword's gone. Like, that's it.
The sword's gone.
The sword's gone.
I hate those fucking dungeons, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, this is the kind of game that we're talking about here. And I love every second of it.
Yeah, it's a good time, man. Honestly, I think Square kind of learned some things about themselves from the production of Final Fantasy 6 and 7, because arguably those two deal in a little more serious tones. And then Tactics comes along and they're like, we kind of like this area, this dark intrigue, spycraft area that we're into. And, you know, Tactics really helped Squaresoft cement themselves as a serious storyteller. You know, they had 7 Final Fantasies under their belt at this time, plus other games. And you could argue they had done their job with storytelling before this, but this took it to another level. This is all just conjecture, but I think they made a shift towards storytelling that wasn't a little hokey and fun all the time. Tactics definitely set it apart. So,
man, indeed.
So the soundtrack itself, composed by Sakimoto and Iwata. They worked on Ogre Battle. They have to figure out how to kind of give this world life in a way that it captures the essence of the game, which is battle. But also the essence of the game is that dark intrigue. It is that murderous political fighting. They had to choose instruments that really worked to bring those things to life and make sure that the world itself felt like a fully fleshed out world. And I think they did succeed. You know, there's a lot of focus on battle themes and things like that. Obviously, it's a video game, but the in-between shots, the story shots, the settings, the songs that deal in, I'm just in a shop buying equipment, they had to make that all fit and be cohesive with this living and breathing world that it was vastly different from Final Fantasy, traditional Final Fantasy. And it was a darker take on Squaresoft's flagship titles. So what they had, it was a kind of a big project on their hands, but they came together to really make it work. They chose like this classical orchestral style that really utilizes a lot of horns and a lot of militaristic drums. And it pays off because there is always that undercurrent of battle and strategy because, hello, Final Fantasy Tactics. It plays very well even in moments where you're not fighting. You know, you're just in the middle of an intense conversation with someone. I think they captured the essence of Final Fantasy Tactics very well. Yeah,
there are moments in the score where, you know, you'll be in like a back alley in some rundown city having a conversation with like an informant. And then, you know, you get this kind of dark, you know, imposing music playing in the background. And then all of a sudden some, you know, thieves come out from an alleyway and you find yourself in a battle and the music just turns it turns on a dime. It feels so seamless because of how well kind of tied together all of the musical themes in this whole game are. It always impressed me.
Absolutely. I think one thing, and I wanted to mention that I think Iwata really, he has the lesser amount of songs on this album that he wrote. The main meat of this album is written by Sakimoto.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say that Iwata really was not relegated, but his focus was on the setting.
Mm-hmm.
And he does have a couple battle themes and some ambient music that he composed for the album, but they managed to get it to all sound very cohesive. So they chose their instruments and they said, okay, I'm going to compose these songs. You're going to compose those songs. They didn't really work on songs together, but they made sure that when you're transitioning from, like you said, talking to someone in a back alley to a battle on the split second, though, that those songs and the feeling of the instruments really are cohesive. They did a really good job there.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I wanted to talk about is Trisection.
Yeah.
Which is a song that is reserved for absolutely intense battles, like when Argoth betrays your party after you have sacrificed to save his life. The battle is the first real moment we feel that the game is really dark. Leading up to this, there's a lot of tension as Argoth's views begin to shift. You know, initially you save him, you rescue him from certain death. He joins your party, but then as you spend time with him, you realize he's a very emotionally driven person, very revenge-oriented, and his story takes a turn. He eventually betrays your party, and under orders, he kills your best friend's sister.
Mm-hmm.
Your best friend is Delita, his sister is Tietra, and he takes this opportunity during this battle to kill his sister. And this is like, okay, the game's taking a turn. This is how we close out Act 1.
Mm-hmm.
And the song itself has an incredible desperation as you, Delita, and your party rush to save Tietra, but you just fail miserably. The main string section offers the main melody, complete with driving, lightly marching snares and accenting horns. There are a couple bridges in the song, one with a deep cello and high violin kind of competing for attention, much like I would imagine Argoth and Tietra are. In the moments before the loop, I feel Delita's struggle. The way the music kind of crescendos and it gets really powerful. You can feel him getting closer and closer to his sister and then ultimately failing. I feel like that song is representing that in some way, but oh man.
Yeah. Yeah. The snares are such a big part of this song. And really, they're part of a lot of songs on the soundtrack, to be honest. But man, did they ever make a big impression right from the get-go? I mean, it's, snares and horns carrying the tune all the way through.
It's just a beautifully crafted song and really captures the moment.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't the only battle this song plays, but it's reserved for moments like this.
Yeah.
And I'm not 100% sure, but I think this is the first time we hear this song in the game. It is the final battle of Act 1, and you feel the weight because of this song. You know what's happening in the story. You know an innocent woman's life is on the line, and you're trying to save her. That's weight right there. But then the song on top of it, it is good stuff. And there is no better example of what's happening here than listening to this song. You had mentioned it before in your text message today, but I would say another track along these lines would be Decisive Battle.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Decisive Battle is extraordinary. It's basically, it's kind of funny because Trisection is easily one of the best songs on the album and some of the best battle music on the whole album or really any Final Fantasy game, to be perfectly frank. And Decisive Battle, it just kind of ramps everything that you heard in Trisection up to like the next level. Like this is a song that is all about intensity, desperation. It's going to be a very, very challenging fight whenever this comes on. It's reserved for some of the more challenging battles in the game, and you can tell right from the first beat. Oh God. I'm happy that you picked Trisection so that I could pick Decisive Battle because I wanted to talk about both of them. This is perfect.
No, that works, man. Yeah, Decisive Battle is one of those songs that begins with a crash and it just keeps going. And the undercurrent of the cello during the main theme, while the strings, the other strings, the violins are coming through, and then the horns start crescendoing and blaring into this beautiful melody. It keeps the tension on so well. And it feels like every decision you're making is life and death, which typically is the case, you know, if you're just playing the game casually. But yeah, oh my God, what a good song.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild. This, God, the build up to the first major crescendo with the horns just coming in and then just punching you. It feels like just punching you right in the chest. It just really drives home the serious situation that you've really found yourself in. It's God. I could listen to it all day. It's a great song.
There's a sinister aspect to it too towards the end when it kind of dives down. It gets very quiet and mellow, but you hear the plucking strings, almost like someone's plotting to do something. And then it ramps right back up into the main theme. It's so beautiful. I wanted to ask you, what is your favorite class in this game? Because there are certain classes that I feel make this game so crunchy and so fun to play. You know, you could be a traditional knight or whatever, but that's really not the way to go. For me, the monk is probably one of my favorites.
Yeah, monk's really strong.
Just absolutely.
Yeah. It's really, really good.
And they have rudimentary healing, so you can really get away with a lot of shit as a one-man party. But
yeah, I would say my favorite class. It's tough because like it's not good the way the mechanics of the game work, but summoners in this game are so cool. Like the summons are awesome. I mean, and we're not talking like Final Fantasy VII over the top Knights of the Round, you know, blowing up the world type summons. This is a different
7 minutes,
a different scale of game. But just the fact, I mean, little technical thing about the game. So in the game, when you use magic, it has an area of effect typically, and you can hurt your own party members with it. So if you target an enemy and then it takes time for your attack to charge and they run next to one of your characters, then your magic goes off while they're next to you. You're going to get hit with fire or, you know, blizzard, thunder, or whatever. You can also accidentally like heal enemies with curing spells. Like it's very weird the way that the magic system works. But when I found out that you could do summons and they would only affect either your characters or the opposing characters, depending on the type of summon, I was like, oh my God, sign me up. It's amazing.
That is one of the other aspects of this game where they ramped up the difficulty. Yeah. You had to, with every spell that you cast, you had to choose whether you target the unit or the area. And you had to either predict the future or you had to do some math and figure out how the spell was going to cast and if it would hit in time. And you had to make sure your units were out of the way.
Yeah.
Which is, it's a whole new level. And it was a completely new mechanic almost to Final Fantasy at that time, because typically it's, do you want to attack the enemies? Yes. Do you want to attack yourself or heal yourself? Yeah. Oh, oops, I had wall on, so now the enemy got some health too. But there aren't instances where you're not sure if you're going to survive your own spell.
Yeah.
And this game brings that forward.
and just to add insult to injury, if you use a character that doesn't have a good faith skill as a magic user, their spells not only just won't really do that much, but some of their healing stuff just won't work. Like Raise can miss. If you ever used Raise with a white mage and had it with like an 85% chance of hitting and then it just doesn't work, you're like, oh, great.
Just whiffs.
Fantastic. That's awesome. Meanwhile, you're watching the little counter above your character's head tick down before he turns into a crystal. Like, oh my God, I can't do this right now. Worst. Can't do this.
Now I just want to play this game. Where is this remake?
It's already had
or remastered.
Well, I mean, it had.
Well, I know.
The Lion, but it's on like most mobile devices. So I have it on my iPad, and I play it when I'm on the planes and stuff. The bummer is that it's a pretty old port, so like it doesn't have controller support, so you kind of have to play with the touchscreen, which is very
annoying. Even this remake came out in 2009, 10. War of the Lions.
Yeah,
it's nuts.
Speaking of War of the Lions, I can't even tell you how mad I was that it was a PSP only when it came out. I did not have a PSP.
This is the reason I got a PSP. Like I need Final Fantasy Tactics on the go.
And I know they didn't really do anything to change the graphics or the music or anything, but kudos to the team that did War of the Lions, because not only did they do a full retranslation of all of the dialogue in the game so that it actually makes sense in some points, but they added like voice acting, FMVs. Like, oh my God, this was the way to remake a game. Oh.
Yeah, they added beautiful cutscenes in the traditional artwork of the. You buy the PlayStation 1 game, you get the booklet, and you see the way the characters are hand drawn. That's what those CGI in between intermediate stories are. They're computer animated, but they're also drawn that way, and they look so good, and it's so fluid and beautiful to look at. Go buy it on the iPad, ladies and gentlemen.
Well worth it. Now, if they would just actually release it on the PlayStation Store for me to play on my PS5.
That's what I want.
What's the deal?
And here comes my achievement whoring coming again. I want them to release this game with achievements because I want to play it again.
I just want to play it on the TV. Like, guys, come on. I want to play it on the TV with a controller. I don't want to. Anyway. Yeah.
Oh, Sony.
There must be some like rights thing that is holding it up, especially like maybe because it got released on iOS and Android, it is messing with their ability to re-release it on console. I don't know.
It could be.
Come on, guys, please figure it out.
What do you think of Run Past Through the Plane?
That's
one of my...
Yeah, this is a really cool song, and there's so many bangers on this album that it would be very easy to listen to basically just battle music and have the whole review of it. And this is probably one of the better pieces of battle music in the game. It's one that plays a lot. Like you get this during random encounters pretty routinely. There's some storyline encounters that it shows up in too, but it is intense. It is fast. It is pumping. It is awesome. Awesome.
I love the immediate momentum of this song. It just starts and it never loses the tempo. And those deep fucking cellos just kind of keeping the backbone of the song and keeping that pace going through the whole thing, providing that triplet backbone. And the strings are singing that melody while the horns just accent in this grandiose way. When I hear this song, I picture like a battle in the rain, thunderstorm.
Yeah.
This is a very intense battle you are in. And this song just never loses any momentum. It gets you moving real quick and you're right in it. And that's what I love about this song. It starts off strong. It doesn't let go for one moment.
Yeah, it doesn't let you go for even a second. There's no refrain. There's no breathing room. It is just go, 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 go the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Yeah. And as for battle themes in general, I think this is offhanded. I'm not necessarily going to feature a song, but there are several that play more like fairy tales or Disney themes, kind of to come back to that idea that traditional Final Fantasies are more, kind of happy-go-lucky at times. This one actually has what I would classify as Disney battles where, and I say that with respect, there are songs, for example, like Random Waltz. It's a very typical song to hear in a random encounter. And there are several of songs like these, but it really just feels like the party is frolicking in the plains rather than battling creatures or monsters. But it works because it really has a natural feeling to it. This song, you don't feel the human strife. You don't feel the politics in this song. And I think that plays to the benefit of the game and the soundtrack as a whole, because not only does it fit in the soundtrack, it gives the world more life. There are living creatures here that you are actually fighting, for random encounters, living and breathing in this world. And this song helps kind of sell the fact that there's more to it than just backstabbing and politics and religious piety. I dig it. It's not one of my favorite battle themes by any stretch, but yeah, it just helps the soundtrack as a whole, I think.
Yeah, I think that Random Waltz, it kind of incites sort of like a feeling of adventure. And that's exactly when this song plays. It, generally speaking, is going to play when you're doing random encounters while traveling through the wilderness from city to city. Frequently, you're fighting, like beasties instead of bandits.
Yeah.
And it's got a much more upbeat feel than a lot of the other songs on the soundtrack. Definitely more so than the battle themes, for sure. It really stands out in that regard. Yeah.
I would say you could drop this anywhere in Bambi and you'd be fine. You wouldn't even know it doesn't fit. But yeah, it's a good song, and I think it really, again, just helps bring this world to life. More so than just the traditional militaristic sweeping orchestral songs we've heard so far. This one does have a different flair to it and breathes new life into the soundtrack.
Yeah, I mean, talking about battle music, are we ready to have some flashbacks to fighting Wheatgraph and
yes.
Belias? Oh boy. Yeah.
Man.
Boy. So yeah, spoilers. If you get to that point in the game that me and Mike were talking about before and you're not prepared, you have to use Ramza, the hero, solo against Wheatgraph, a knight, who at this point in the game is very powerful. And come to find out, you're not really supposed to try and solo enemies in this game with pretty much any character. It's just not the way it's balanced. But if you can't beat him, you have to restart. Thankfully, if you do beat him and he transforms into his quote unquote final form, you get to listen to the song Pervert.
Yeah.
This song is killer because the first time that it ever plays in the game is the first time that you see something truly supernatural happen. That you certainly, well, I mean, there's a spoiler because you see him transform in a previous cutscene, but it's the first time that you've had to fight one of the Lucavi, or the Zodiac Braves, as they're called in War of the Lion. And it is an intense battle. This is the first true, like, your whole party versus a boss battle in the game, and it does not disappoint.
Yeah, he summons 4 archdemons to kind of assist him in this battle. Your party finally shows up, and God help you, they need to, because Belias is no slouch. So, yes, as you said, this is that battle where if you are not prepared, you are stuck and you have to start the game over.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent fight.
Oh, yeah.
Excellent fight. And this song is so fitting because what you're seeing is just this grotesque transformation into this kind of ram-like beast with, I mean, he's bipedal.
Yeah.
But he has like a ram head and I think 2 sets of arms, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so, yeah.
Very, very muscular, very terrifying, very demonic. And this song with its low horns and plotting nature is very horrifying. It fits what you're seeing on screen. Like, you're not prepared for what's coming. And then Wheatgraph transforms into this demon. It's like the whole world of Ivalice is being turned on its head because, this, like you said, this is one of the first times you're witnessing something outside of that political intrigue, that human nature to compete with each other. This is much deeper than that. Something much bigger is going on, and it becomes Final Fantasy at this point. You know, there are demons at play. Excellent song.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's awesome. And this is a song that ends up repeating anytime you fight one of the other Lucavi. I think they're called Zodiac Braves. Are they called? Yeah. Any one of the Lucavi later on in the game. There's a bunch of them that you end up having to fight. But essentially, anytime this song comes on, it's because you have a serious business boss fight in front of you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Whenever you hear it, prepare yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to kind of piggyback on that one, I'm glad you mentioned this one because there are darker tracks, and I wanted to focus on at least one of Iwata's. Everything we've talked about so far has been Sakimoto. And as I had mentioned earlier, he did focus on maybe setting pieces, but this is one of his battle themes, and it's called Night Attack. What I like about this one is because he captures the essence of what I think, you being a ninja, for instance, you're sneaking into a town and you're infiltrating the enemy's base and you're trying to gather information or something. This song really encompasses that. It's almost a non-existent song at the beginning. It's very plotting, the drums and the cymbals are kind of off in the distance. You hear light strings kind of indicate your movement throughout the camp, and you're trying to make your way through. But then it eventually becomes very dramatic, very bold section with horns picking up the melody and slowly rising into a very desperate juncture. I think Iwata captured the theme of trying to sneak through your enemy territory very well.
Oh, yeah.
And this is just a fun song to listen to.
Yeah, I love the use of horns when you get about halfway through the song. The whole like pacing and the intensity of the song starts to step up at that point. Yeah. Really starkly in contrast to the way that the song begins, which is exactly to your
very
point.
Light.
It's light. It sounds like you're trying to sneak around and get past some guards, and pretty cool. The song tells a story. Good
stuff. And that's one thing that I think Iwata does very well here. He's telling the story, and you know, this is a battle theme, but you know, it works. You're hearing kind of a battle unfold as you're watching it on screen, but you're also playing a different one in your mind, kind of a different series of events. But that's what I liked about this song. And he does a good job here of kind of capturing that moment.
Yeah, it's a great song. It's one that if you were just to listen through the soundtrack, you could probably end up actually kind of like breezing over it. especially because of the spot in the soundtrack that it falls. I mean, it's basically between the last song that we talked about and what's probably the next song we're going to talk about. And that's pretty close to the end of the game. But it's a really, really well composed track. And to your point, you can tell that there's some different compositional skills that went into making it, because it really stands out differently than a lot of the other stuff that Sakimoto composed on the track or on the album.
Yeah. The only thing I wanted to mention, and I'll let you get to your final pick, but I wanted to mention Iwata one more time, and I'm not going to feature the song, but I wanted to give a shout out to the shop theme.
Yeah.
Because it's another one of those moments that I think really fleshes out the world. The soundtrack, as we've talked about, as we've heard, very militaristic. It has those snare drums, those horns that indicate battle. It indicates corruption and all this craziness. But then you go to a shop and you root around for equipment, and you get this jaunty little tune. And Iwata really composed this track that takes you out of the intensity of the world, but also, again, reminds you that this is a fleshed out world. This is just a guy's shop, and he's trying to help people along the way. And it's just a plotting theme, a very fun, short theme with a kind of an adventurous little flute singing a nice melody. It's just a great time.
Yeah, frankly, all of the town music, Outfitter, Warriors Guild, Poacher's Den, Tavern, they're all fantastic.
Yeah.
And you hear them so much in the game. Like, oh my God, so much. Especially Tavern, for some reason. I just feel like you hear more than others. They never really get old. The loops are short, but they're well composed. They're light. They're not overbearing. Yeah. Great stuff.
All right, Jesse, I know you're dying to hit us with your final pick.
Yeah, this one was tough because there's two different versions of this song, either first form of Final Boss or last form of Final Boss, but you knew we were going to end up getting to a Final Boss theme at some point in this review. I mean, dear listener, come on now. So I really want to call out the first form of Ultima's transformation. It's kind of interesting because Sakimoto composed Ultima's transformation and Iwata composed Ultima's perfection, which is the second form. They just blend together so beautifully, though. And if we could listen to both, I would. But Ultima's transformation, man, the strings at the beginning, the chimes, the triangles, like it just pulls everything together. And you can tell that this is an intense battle.
This is it.
This is it.
Yeah.
This is it.
What I like about it is that it has that presence at the beginning of, this is it. You've made it. And I love that. I spoke about it with John quite frequently. And there's something about knowing you are at the final battle. And the rolling snares, those rudiments going back and forth, really, really sets the stage for letting you know. And I feel like they're almost higher in volume.
Yeah.
When compared to other battle themes.
I agree.
But yeah, this one really has a little bit more intensity. They're playing their instruments harder, and those strings just kind of flitting about, and the horns just indicating that danger of what you're facing. It's very unholy, very dangerous, and very end of the world.
Yeah. And, one of the things that I really love about it is, I'm not going to give any overt spoilers because we've been talking the game up so much that there might be some people that actually want to go out and play, but this song and the follow-up song, Ultima's Perfection, tie directly back to other songs in the album that, they kind of give you a hint at what's actually going on here, and that's all I'll leave. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
But man, that it just makes the whole work feel so complete to me. It's impressive.
Oh yeah. When they weave songs into each other, it is eye-opening, and it brings a deeper meaning to the rest of the soundtrack, because it's like it opens those doors in your mind where you're like, oh fuck, this has to be related. This can't be a coincidence, and I love that kind of stuff. I know Nobuo Uematsu did it quite a bit with Final Fantasy VI. Very fun stuff, and yeah, this song is no different. It's very intense. You feel the weight of the battle on your shoulders, and this is that moment where you've been living for when you're playing this game. So excellent song. Excellent pick.
Great stuff.
But yeah, this soundtrack is just a unique beast. You know, I'm not going to engage in a lot of hyperbole, but I do think it was an extremely different and entertaining soundtrack, especially when compared to the mainline Final Fantasy games. You know, the instrumentation that Sakimoto and Iwata used is extremely orchestral. It has flair, pomp and circumstance, danger. It's got whimsy. They flesh out a world with a focused vision that never really falls off. No. I can't think of a track that I just skip. And I'm sure there are small tracks here and there that maybe don't impact you as much. But overall, I'm talking about cohesion. And they managed to create a 70-odd track album that is a blast to listen to, and it all fits. It's all very militaristic, very world building, and they all deal with telling a story, whether it is an intense battle where you're fighting for your life or trying to save someone, or you're fucking shopping for equipment or fighting in a field with some creatures. It's all very world building and very different than, I would say, a typical soundtrack. This one is trying to give life to the world, I feel like, whereas other soundtracks may just, you know, they're really well composed, but they don't have quite as much cohesiveness as this one does. They might be regimented songs. They might, you can tell where, you know, okay, this was a completely different piece. These two songs go together. This album feels like everything's kind of part of the same organism. So very well done.
Yeah, really a work of art. I mean, we say it all the time, but, you know, this is, I think, easily one of the best video game soundtracks of all time. It really stands out to me, especially for what they were able to do with such a unique game. And I don't think that it's out of the question to say that this is probably one of the best titles on PlayStation. I mean, oh no, I can't think of many others that top it.
No, that's not an overstatement. It is very, very high up there.
Yeah.
I say that having played almost 10 PlayStation 1 games, that this is one of the best on the platform.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Do you mind if I shout out the recent discovery that I made that I was telling you about?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sure. So totally by chance, I was just, you know, looking for different versions of this soundtrack so I could listen to a couple of different iterations. And, you know, there's always, you know, people on like OC Remix or what have you that have done their own versions of different songs. Well, I stumbled across a YouTube channel for a gentleman named Jacob Shroom. Shroom? I didn't actually ask him. I'm going to say Shroom. Jacob, sorry if I misspelled or I mispronounced your name. And
it's done with respect.
Yeah, it's the Final Fantasy Tactics soundtrack remastered. And at first I thought it was just, you know, another one of those things that people put a lot of work and love and heart into and put up on YouTube, and, you know, it just kind of disappears into the mists of obscurity. But then I started looking at some of the comments, and I didn't at first realize how well received this particular remaster was, to the point that he actually commented just a few weeks ago on one of the videos and said, "Hey, great news, everybody. This entire soundtrack is now on streaming. All streaming services, you can look for his remastered version, The Lions of Ivalice." It's two different albums. And it's not somebody taking the original soundtrack and giving it their own sort of spin. it is an incredibly faithful remaster while still keeping the chiptunes sort of vibe that you expect. But just, oh God, he did an incredible job. So when I started researching him, I realized, oh, he's actually like a composer for video games and movies and TV. He's a real person. He's a real musician, Mike. How about
He's
that?
a real man.
A real guy. So, Jacob, incredible job. I'd encourage anybody that's listening to look up his website, jacobschrum.com. Look up the album on YouTube or any streaming service. And listen to the soundtracks for some of the other games that he's worked on, like Spider-Man 2 and God of War Ragnarok, God of War Valhalla. The list goes on. Pretty cool dude. And I actually emailed him to ask if we could shout him out. And he emailed me back on like New Year's Eve in like 2 hours. I was
That's
like,
awesome.
damn, that's okay.
Thank you very much, Jacob. We do appreciate that. And well done, might I say.
Oh, yeah.
This is some excellent stuff. It's always nice to have a fresh take on a classic soundtrack, especially when, you try to be as faithful as you can be, like Jacob has been. And what a wonderful time. What a wonderful project.
You got any parting thoughts, Mike?
I do. So Sakimoto is still active and released a game just last year. It's called Wizardry Variants Daphne. Don't know what that is, but yeah. You can find him still working, Hitoshi Sakimoto. As for Masaharu Iwata, it looks like he doesn't appear to be as active. He has credits such as the Tactics Ogre Reborn remake last year or 2 years ago. And before that, I haven't seen him since 2015 with Grand Kingdom. But he doesn't seem to be doing a whole lot anymore. But the good news is, you can purchase this soundtrack on iTunes, ladies and gentlemen, $15.99. You can buy the whole thing. Give these two guys some love for their hard work and for composing one of the premier soundtracks for the PlayStation. I give this game, Jesse, a 10 out of 10 Zodiac Stones.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, hands
Even
down.
though there's more than that.
This is a 10 out of, I guess there's 12, right? Or 13. I guess there's 13.
13,
There's Serpentarius too, which is Zodiac. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to go 13 out of 10 Zodiac Stones. Just because,
Excellent.
The soundtrack deserves it. I mean, let's be fair.
You can't go wrong with this soundtrack. It is an experience. Even if you have never played this game, I suggest you take a listen to it. If you like video game soundtracks and how theatrical they can be, this is a prime example of just how much love and dedication you can put into something, and something that really captures a world's life force and puts it into music. I think this soundtrack does so much. It tells so many stories just orally that you could easily get into this without having played the game.
And I was just going to say, before we split, it's definitely worth mentioning that Iwata actually ended up leaving Square Enix back in the early 2000s, and he founded Base Escape, which I guess, according to Wikipedia and some other sources, is still currently the largest independent video game music production company in the world. So
yeah, they both did.
Awesome. They both did. Yep.
They're both working there. Yeah. Base Escape, they formed it in 2002, and they contribute to video games. They contribute to anime and film. incredibly big company. And they allow for a lot of their employees to kind of work at their own pace and enjoy their own projects. So they do a lot of cool stuff, and that is definitely something they should be proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. So kudos to them, and thanks for all of their contributions to this genre that you and I love so dearly.
Absolutely. Well, Jesse, that is the show. I think we should say goodbye to these dear people. Thank you very much for listening.
Yeah.
This was a special episode. Thank you, Jesse, for picking it. I know it was coming down the line somewhere. You just kind of bumped it up the list there.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually, when we were trying to figure out what we were going to cover next, and it was one of those like just shower thoughts moments. I was literally in the shower just, doing whatever. And then I texted Mike and I was like, it hit me like a thunderclap. How have we not covered Final Fantasy Tactics yet? Are you kidding me?
Right.
And well, Here we are a week and a half or so later.
Here we are. That's the show. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you guys next time. Sure enough, we're going to be talking about another classically good or bad soundtrack. We haven't decided yet, but stay tuned.
Yeah. Stay tuned. Thanks for listening, folks.
All right.
You should go rest your voice, you poor motherfucker. Holy crap.
Oh, my God. All I do for my job is talk, too, so yeah. I've been up since 7 o'clock talking to people.
Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, please rate and subscribe. We very much appreciate it. Also visit our brand new website, magusmediaproductions.net, to get all information on every show. See you next time.
It's that time, everyone. The Magus Media Production sales pitch. Please check out our homepage at magusmediaproductions.net so you can stay up to date on all of our shows. Check out our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Magus Media Productions, both of which have our Discord link on it, where you can join us for live shows as we record them for future release. At Magus Media Prods on X, our Patreon, patreon.com/magusmedia, where a $5 donation will help us keep the lights on and bringing you new content, and you get some stickers. Thank you for your consideration and support.